everyone. Welcome. We wanted to take a second and introduce the rest of White Salmon to Michael Mehaffy, who our city council knows well. He's been working with us since last spring, helping us to adopt and now implement our housing action plan. And a lot of that work is now getting underway. So we wanted to take a moment before he starts having more meetings with stakeholders and some of you more publicly with some Let's Talks that we've scheduled later this fall. So Michael, welcome. And I think maybe news to many people unless they've been catching you around town, but you're actually a local. So I was wondering if you could just let people know kind of who you are or kind of how you came to actually be a resident here in the Gorge.
Well, this is my home as well. I actually live in Bingen. I lived in White Salmon for a while, but my daughter got a job here about 10 years ago or so. And I came and visited, and like a lot of people, I'm sure, I fell in love with the community. I moved here, but I mostly work across the US and even internationally. And so it was great for me when I had the opportunity to give back to my own community, to work here in White Salmon and deal with the challenges that I think we are all aware we have, especially to provide more housing, more affordable housing, and make it easier for our children and our other people that are in our lives to live here as well. So this is what we're working on, and we're obviously working with the community and want to collaborate with the stakeholders who have obviously the impacts on their communities and their homes. And as somebody who owns a home here myself, I completely understand that. And I think it's important that we all work together on these goals.
So professionally, you might be a homeowner, but really, I think your expertise that you're bringing to the table is many years, decades, I would say, and a lot of experience in a broad range of communities. I'm wondering if you could just give people a sense of kind of what your background is with planning and how you have gotten into this space, pretty deeply rooted, I would say, of guiding communities through changes to spur more housing.
Yeah, well, I'm an urban planner and trained as an architect. I actually got my PhD in architecture, but I don't get to do building design very often. Sometimes I do. Actually, I was just working on a home today for some clients, but mostly I work at the neighborhood scale and the community scale at making places that are more livable and better quality, more walkable, more lively, more economic opportunity for folks. And this is something that I've been passionate about for many years. One of the other hats that I wear is as a manager of a nonprofit that is focused on livability called International Making Cities Livable. And that's what we do, is we travel around to different parts of the country and the world, and we look at what's working in other communities, what we can learn from them, what's maybe not working, how we can bring those lessons back to our own communities, and how we can make more thriving, more successful, more livable communities for our own neighborhoods as well.
So on the what's not working side of things, I think it is not news to anyone who's tried to build in White Salmon or who's been following this issue, but there's a lot about our current code that is very frustrating for people who have tried to build something or for developers that have thought about maybe trying to pursue a development in town. And we've been talking with our city council about some low-hanging fruit, and that's a lot of these code changes that we're trying to bring forward before the end of the year. And I'm wondering if you could give people an idea of what we mean when we say that. Some of the parts of our code that have been difficult or overly cumbersome. Sometimes it's like one code says one thing and then you read another chapter and another code can contradict it. And so what is this low-hanging fruit work that we're trying to kind of make our first phase of implementation?
Well, a lot of these ordinances are kind of like barnacles on ships. Over time, you get this one and this one and this one, and you end up with this sort of barnacle encrusted hull, right? And that's kind of what we have in not only in White Salmon, but in many regulations around the world and around the US. And I think nobody really wants to see that because it doesn't facilitate our goals. we need to simplify the processes. We need to streamline the regulations so that it's easier for people to do what they need to do, what we all need, which is more housing and more affordable housing and so on. And so I think that's a big part of it that is really, it's a nonpartisan issue. It's, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of political controversy about whether there should be regulation or not regulation. But I think we all agree that there should be rational regulation where there's regulation at all. And that it's easier for folks to understand what they need to do to pull a permit, to build a house, to build a you know, mixed use development or whatever they're trying to do. And that it's a more rational process, that they aren't just stymied because the system is you know, hamstrings them and makes it harder for them to do what everybody wants them to do ultimately, which is provide good quality housing and neighborhood development. So that's the first step of what we're working on now. As you know, Mayor, we're doing the code review and then looking at where there are conflicts in the code or regulations in the code that are maybe seemed like a good idea 50 years ago when they were introduced. But the market has moved on and people's needs have moved on, and we need to update those. But at the same time, we need to make sure that when we change something in the code, we're not creating a negative impact on the existing neighbors. This is a very important requirement, I think, that we need to keep uppermost, that we make sure that when people are given a permit to build something, that it doesn't, you know, block out the sun from the neighbor's backyard or create some other negative impact. And we need to make sure that we build in those provisions working together with the neighbors. I refer to that as QIMBY. You know, you've all heard about NIMBY, which is not in my backyard, and YIMBY. Some people are in favor of yes in my backyard, let's have more housing, which is fair enough, but let's not just jam it in. Let's do it in a way that respects the needs of the existing neighbors to maintain their quality of life and maintain the livability of their neighborhood and their home. And let's have quality in my backyard. You know, let's do it proactively so that we're all working together rather than reactively and dealing with unintended consequences of these changes. So I think that's really important in the process that we're moving forward into right now, is to make sure we hear from the stakeholders who are going to be impacted by these changes and make sure that those impacts are understood and manageable, and that this is something that we all want. We want to have a more thriving, lively place where other members of our family and other people that we know and care about and that take care of our needs can live along with the rest of us, and do that in a way that balances and mitigates those negative impacts. So we look forward to a real collaboration with the public on that.
Yeah, definitely. And now that hopefully everyone can put a face to Michael's name, will see him more, not just at upcoming commission and council meetings, but we are coming out into the community with some outreach as well. We're planning a couple Let's Talk events in October and November that will talk more about QIMBY over NIMBY, and also this idea of form-based code, which is something that a lot of communities have undertaken, kind of that transition to a code that's more visual to support the types of developments that we're envisioning. And then we're also going to have an open house. That open house will really be a chance for the community to come and understand what this low-hanging fruit, these proposed code changes are that will be going before council. So I encourage everyone to get involved in those events. You can also send your questions to City Hall. There's information on our Housing Action website for how to reach us, either via video or through email. But we will have questions that Michael answers, and we'll have questions that city staff answers. But we really hope that where we land has been informed by this community. There are changes that we are putting in place that need to be community supported and community driven. So Michael's here to help guide us, but he's not driving the ship. So hopefully you'll all come aboard. And thank you, Michael. We really look forward to doing this work with you.
Thank you.